friends. Today I'm going to tell you about one of the biggest mysteries of the modern world: debt. Yes, it may sound boring, but debt is actually the hidden engine of our world. And here's the strange part: every country on earth is in debt. The United States, the European Union, Japan, even oil-rich Saudi Arabia or export giants like Germany and China. If everyone is in debt, then who is everyone borrowing from? Here's the paradox: debt is not just a burden, it is actually the architecture of the modern world. Every war, every crisis, every rise and collapse has been built on this invisible scaffolding. And when you follow the money trail, you realize the world isn't indebted to one single force. It's indebted to itself. But that doesn't mean everyone benefits equally. Let's rewind time a bit, back to before credit cards and digital transfers. The idea of national debt was born in war. Year: 1694. England is fighting France, and its gold reserves run out. The king turns to the merchants of the time. They say, "We'll lend you money, but you'll pay us interest from future taxes." To manage this system, the Bank of England is established, and thus the government bond is born. A bond is essentially a state IOU. This becomes the foundation of modern finance. France copies it, the Dutch improve it, and the United States finances its independence and Western expansion with it. From that point on, debt is no longer seen as failure. It becomes a sign of credibility. Being able to borrow means having power. In the past, empires conquered land to gather gold. Now they simply issue bonds and bring the battlefield onto financial statements. Fast forward to today. The U.S. has $38 trillion in debt. Japan has $9 trillion. The European Union, $14 trillion. Total world debt is $315 trillion, and every 100 days, another trillion is added. Everyone is a debtor, and everyone is a creditor. Citizens are both, through taxes, savings, and pension funds. So who holds the other end of the rope? Let's take the U.S. as an example. Half of its $38 trillion debt is owned by investors. 2/3 of those investors are American institutions: banks, pension funds, investment firms, insurance companies, even the Federal Reserve. The remaining third belongs to foreign nations. Japan holds $1 trillion, China $800 billion, followed by the UK, Luxembourg, Belgium. So, America is in debt to China is true, but it only makes up about 2% of the total. In reality, America owes most of its debt to itself. The Treasury issues bonds, banks buy them, and when needed, the Fed buys bonds and creates new dollars. Americans pay interest through taxes, and that interest flows right back into American pension funds. The system feeds itself. And this isn't unique to the U.S. Japan pays the U.S. The U.S. lends to Europe through the IMF. Europe lends to developing countries through the World Bank, and those countries hold reserves in Western bonds and send money back. It's a global hot potato game, and the potato is made entirely of promises. Every country holds another country's IOU. Each promise is backed by another promise. It's like a poker table where everyone bought chips from one another, and the game can only continue if nobody stands up. At the top of this system are the markets: hedge funds, pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, and central banks managing trillions. They are the real credit gatekeepers. They decide which country borrows cheaply and which must pay high interest. When trust disappears, currencies crash and governments fall. Democracy decides who rules. Markets decide who survives. And the strongest player in the game is the central bank. They don't just manage debt, they create it. When the Fed or the European Central Bank buys government bonds, it creates new money in return. One balance sheet's liability becomes another's asset. Every dollar in circulation represents debt. There is no such thing as debt-free money. This only works because the system is built on trust. As long as investors believe governments will pay interest, the wheel keeps turning. When trust collapses, the system breaks. That's what happened in Greece in 2010. Debt became unpayable, interest rates exploded, and the IMF and the European Central Bank stepped in. But the cost was austerity, tax hikes, budget cuts, unemployment. A bailout for the system became a sacrifice for a generation. Argentina experienced this multiple times. Sri Lanka faced political and economic collapse when debts couldn't be paid. When the system cracks, the creditors appear. IMF, ratings agencies, massive bondholders. But then the cycle resets. Old debts are restructured, new debts are issued, and the system continues. Only the names of the loans change. Here's the key thing. Governments don't plan to pay off their debts. Debt exists to be rolled over. Old debt is paid with new debt. The only thing actually paid is the interest, the rent of stability. And the global economy is now addicted to this rent. The U.S. will never pay off its debt. Japan's debt exceeds 250% of GDP, yet it still borrows at near zero interest because investors don't expect repayment. They expect renewal. Government bonds are the safest collateral in the world. In fact, imagine the U.S. saying, "We're paying off all debt." Banks and funds would lose their safest assets. The money supply would shrink, leading to deflation and economic collapse. Paying off the debt would destroy the economy. That's why governments choose the opposite: continued borrowing. Debt has become the heartbeat of capitalism. This is why political talk about balancing the budget and ending national debt is mostly an illusion. The goal is not eliminating debt, it's protecting trust. Because once trust disappears, numbers no longer matter. This is the secret of sovereign debt. The plan was never to pay it back. The goal is to keep the world believing it will be paid. And as long as this closed loop of confidence continues, the numbers will keep growing. But the benefits aren't shared equally. Interest payments don't flow evenly through society. They move from working taxpayers to investment funds and institutions. Debt is not just between countries, it's between classes. Those who hold the debt win. Those who pay it lose. In this system, creditors aren't villains and debtors aren't victims. They are two parts of the same engine. The problem is that one day the engine may run out of fuel. When new debt can no longer cover old promises, the question, "Who is the creditor?" becomes personal, not theoretical. At the top of the global pyramid, there is no single face to blame. Not China, not Wall Street, not the IMF. It is all of them, and all of us. Modern finance has turned debt into money. Governments issue it, banks multiply it, investors trade it, and citizens trust it. And within this system, everyone is in debt.